I always wanted to be in film. I wanted to make films, tell stories. I just never knew what the avenues were going to be to enter. I thought I was going to direct at some point. So I did really a student job.
It is fascinating when you hear somebody's story, because I think when we think of Monareng, you right now we know you in the executive producer, managing director, big presence. I mean, you give me Morpheus vibes.
How we got to the producer led, it was saying we will find the right type of resource for the content that you want to produce. And like I said in the beginning, sometimes it doesn't need a director. Sometimes because not all work that we produce needs a camera. A lot of it is, and that's the type of that's our core business. And in fact, that's our core experience is creating motion picture. Seems like I'm doing a lot of these things lately. I did that one for Audio Malaysia.
Yeah.
And then at the Luries, I did that. It had a hub, a production hub. They called it I Did That House. And every day, for 3 days, they had like panels and they had a big party the final day. But it was like just a place where the industry can go and hang out and kind of network and stuff. So I was part of a panel there, talking about in-house, whether it was called to in-house or not to in-house, talking about in-house production companies and just kind of what the impact has been on the industry, what the pros are, what the cons are. It was actually a very positive conversation. I was a bit nervous about it because I thought it would be, quite antagonistic. But it turns out that, when you look at it, the agencies are under the same pressure because clients are bringing in. And that was what was revealed to me in that conversation, is that the agencies are just under much pressure because clients are looking to vertically integrate the creative or the agency function in-house as well, for many reasons, some of it profit taking. While we're also, agencies and production houses are also production houses are being integrated into agency, and we think that's a threat against our industry. So what is, I think, a threat to our industry is not having the conversations that we had on that day. And it was actually quite enlightening, because what it revealed to me is that at the end of the day, we all care about our work, our craft, and everybody wants to do good work and do good work within a healthy ecosystem.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, if you're just joining us, and I'm sure we're going to find ourselves having led into all of this, greetings and welcome to Just Speak, the Shaun Naidu podcast. We are joined today by a good friend of many years, I think almost a decade long that we've been somewhat in each other's lives in the advertising world. Monareng Makwetla, managing director, executive producer of Triple Story Content, and just an all-round nice guy and a wealth of experience and just many years of stories that we've already been spending, I think, the last hour and a bit reminiscing about. Yeah. But we decided, if all of that good stuff is going to be happening, let's just get this started. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, it really was, you were one of the people on my list. You'll find that as this podcast kind of figures itself out and goes out, you're probably coming in, number 5 or 6 or something, Pharrell would know. But we just literally, I did episode 0 and I said, I'm a new entity. Nobody knows who the hell Shaun is and what's all this about. So there isn't a line around the corner, of people lining up to be on the podcast. So one had to call on these friendships and network contacts. But what was beautiful about being 20 years in the game and working in the world we get to work in is that most of the people I get to pick up the phone and call are amazing people that have great stories anyway.
Yeah, sure.
So, one of the interesting things also, as I was thinking about what we talk about and where we'd go with the conversation, I watched a podcast that you were on very recently, with Audio Malaysia, and you gave a very, very nice sort of timeline explanation of your entrance into advertising, the different journey steps that you took and how you went there. So what I thought would be really cool is just to give a shout out to that podcast.
Yeah.
So let anybody watching
Malaysia.
this to say Monareng's sort of like how he did it story is somewhat there. And give us a highlights version of that, like, 2 minutes maybe, just a quick, timeline this year, that internship kind of thing. But let's just say, go check it out. We're not shy of somebody else's podcast getting some views if you want to hear the depth of that part of his story, because there's so much else we want to talk about, and it just helps us get to it.
Fantastic. Shaun, big up to you, man, for doing that and kind of, doing a shout out to another podcast, Audio Malaysia. I had a lot of fun doing that. And, I actually watched it just the other day because so another associate was on it, and I watched that, and then my episode came on afterwards, and I was also watching just to see how did I actually, did my story make sense? I had a lot of fun doing it, and you watch these things and you just actually realize how much you've done over the years, because all you're trying to do is really just practice your craft, make a name for yourself, make an income, make a healthy living that feeds your family, and also, while not harming the world while you're doing it. And I think, we go to bed at night knowing that whatever we do does not harm other people. We don't ever take advantage of other people. And I know, the kind of the traditional view of what producers do is that, we're ruthless, or that, whatever those negative connotations are. And I just want to always dispel against that, in that we do our job when we do our job very well without harming other people. Fairness, integrity. But it's always about creating good work. It's always about putting the work first. So anyway, in a nutshell, my journey began when I left matric. I thought I wanted to do something creative. I always knew that I was leaning towards the creative side of the world. And by the way, I do feel that, one of my philosophies in life is that everybody is creative. Every human being is creative. We make creative decisions from the time that we wake up until the time that we go to bed. Mm-hmm. You see the guys on the road pulling the waste recycling trolleys. Somebody had to come up with a creative idea of how to move things across the city without a motor engine, essentially, not without having the resources to do that. Somebody decided that I'm going to take the wheels off a trolley and, literally use my physical power to move it across, and here we are. We almost have a whole industry, really, of recyclers. But anyway, so I always knew that I wanted to do something creative. But at the time when I left matric 1993, there weren't a lot of options, right? It was, if you were creative, it was either you were going to go do drama, or you were going to do an engineering degree, which is not really creative, I've since found out, or, design or fashion or art or that kind of thing. And I knew that I wasn't as talented in the art side of things as I thought I was. I did art all the way up until matric. And then I decided to do a degree in architecture because it kind of blended all the skills that I have. I'm very good at mathematics, and I'm very left brain logical person. Anyway, so I did that for 3 years. One of my life lessons that I'm only looking at now that I'm older was I should have finished it, but I didn't for various reasons. Anyway, so I did that, and then I went on and I did a medical degree because I figured that, I needed to do something else. Exactly, yeah. I needed to do something else. I went and I did a medical degree. My parents have always been people that are themselves driven people, and that are always been pushing us to do things and to do something that's meaningful with your time.
Did you finish that?
So I didn't finish that. That was that's actually where the revelation came out from, because of where really my interests lie, right? So I did 3 years of that degree. The first year was all very BSc. I remember kind of like very much science driven and just really kind of learning the principles behind where we were going, right, in terms of the medical degree. And then the second year I did anatomy and physiology. Absolutely hated physiology, which is really about the chemicals and the switches that these chemicals and hormones do in your body, and and how your whole body works from a kind of physiological point of view, but how it makes how your body works in terms of the fluids that will move around your body. Anyway, I'm simplifying it. Then I did anatomy, and for me, I was really fascinated by the design of the human body and how perfect a design the human body was. So I really then started falling in love with the visual aspect of the human body, and as I was carrying on, I figured, I'm really not meant to be sitting in a lab, and decided, well, let me pursue this creative side of myself and see what it is that I can do. Now, I always wanted to be in film. I wanted to make films, tell stories. I just never knew what the avenues were going to be to enter. I thought I was going to direct at some point. So I did really a student job, because for me, it's always about trying to take the step that leads you towards your destination or your goal. And sometimes it's very small steps, negligible steps at times, but you always make a step towards that. So anyway, so I worked in a call center. I worked in a call center thinking that would be my path into filmmaking, because the call center is one of the broadcasters. I thought, okay, well, there I'm going to have a chance of meeting somebody that I can tell my story to and tell them what I'm about. That never happened, but I made a good living out of it, really. And I could have fell into the trap of giving up on the dream and falling into the kind of the practical part of life and just following the responsible side of things. But I decided that I was going to take a chance after meeting a friend, gaining an avenue into the world of freelance film, getting an inroads into the industry. So I joined an agency as a production assistant, and therein I learned a lot about myself as well, just about willing to humble yourself in order to gain what it is that you wanted. So always keeping your eyes on the eventual prize of what it was that I wanted to do. And I was willing to humble myself. And as a production assistant, you do various things, you do the necessary things, but you also realize the importance of different people on set. Even the person, the most junior person on set, there's a responsibility, because ultimately if I held the keys to the production office and I was late or I didn't show up, it means that nobody can get into the production office and the production can't happen, or it's delayed by an hour and that costs money and all of those kind of things.
And it's funny, young people don't get that. Hey, just that small responsibility,
right?
Big impact.
Small responsibility, big impact, exactly. But also you then start to learn your own sense of responsibility towards yourself and your pursuit of what is excellent to you and what is excellent in front of you. And in terms of what you know, and there's obviously, you don't know what you don't know at that time, but you keep learning, and you're always wanting to be as good as possible in that realm of what I could control. And what I could control was essentially these two hands, my attitude, and basically being willing to work, to put my head down and to work, keep a good attitude, be helpful, be useful to people, because there's no point in just taking up space and not being useful to the team and making sure that what you do on a daily basis furthers the team in whatever way. And a story I always say or like to tell is, if the guy behind the camera, the DOP or the cameraman is constantly his job is to be there and create great pictures. Now, at some point, he's going to need sustenance, but, he can't always be moving from the camera and going off to the craft table. So why not be the person that can be that link between him and that sustenance? And then suddenly you're useful. you're suddenly somebody that he can always be like, when he looks up, he can look over to you and you kind of know that he needs something, and that was always kind of the attitude that I had. And so with that attitude, I managed to work my way up to a second assistant director, first assistant director, and I'm very fortunate because I always say, like, I've been very fortunate. As the saying goes, fortune favors the brave. And I was always brave enough to put myself into situations that make me feel uncomfortable, not like pain uncomfortable, but just kind of stretch me as a person, stretch my intellect, stretch my attitude. So I got offered a position as a production coordinator in a production office, and I took that position, and that's where things started changing for me, because I never realized that in actual fact I wasn't really geared to be a director, although if I'd probably put my mind to it and my efforts to it, I would, but it would take me a lot longer to do some of the incredible work that directors do. But I got an opportunity to be a production coordinator. Went and I did that for a while, worked my way up to production manager, and I actually fell in love with production and producing, and realizing that the director is the one whose vision comes to life. But as the producer, I'm the person that is responsible for bringing all the different resources and coordinating all of those resources to make that vision come to life. And once that I had that realization in my head and realizing that my worth from that perspective, the world is my oyster, because it was always about putting together those resources in the most efficient way, but also doing it in such a way that everybody feels seen, those resources, and not realizing that a lot of those resources, and it's really, to be honest, what we do is a people business. We deal with people. People are our most important resource, and when you make people seen, when you make people, and by seen I mean not just seeing them, but actually seeing them for the human being that they are, and the space that they hold as a human being, the world starts opening up, because people start recognizing the way that you do things, even if you're not directly talking to them and how you deal with them, but they start realizing how you deal with other people, and it kind of opens up the possibility that you could deal with them in the same way that you dealt with them, and then you become an approachable person. Then you become somebody who is willing, that they can sort of see themselves as, or that they can see themselves, or that they can see helping them towards their achieving their goals. So, and I'm always very open to helping people. We always say yes, even before we know what people, here we are, I'm sitting here at this podcast. I said yes even before I knew what it was about. But and that's always what has helped me, is always just to be humble, to be integrous, to treat people well, and to be respectful, not just of the person, but also of their function within the team that is a crew, the team that, any team as such, but just realizing that everybody's got a function to play, and that function is just as important in terms of getting us to our end goal. And you can't do it alone, right? So in any case, so then production manager, producer, eventually, started my own shop with a friend, Kalash. Kalash then eventually got merged with Velocity. We worked there for 7 years. I was exec producer there. We literally started from zero and like 0 seconds of a show reel, and eventually built, hours and hours of different work that we had done throughout the continent. Got to travel a lot of the continent, which is really where I honed a lot of the skills, I suppose, that one has in terms of just being able to deal with diverse people, understanding nuances, understanding understanding that, you have to, in my opinion, what has always helped me is going in and knowing that I know what I know, but I don't know what you know. And I can't come into your house and tell you about your space and what you know. I come inside to help you achieve a goal, and together we can achieve that goal. So that sort of attitude has always helped me. And then we started a production company after Velocity. I was there for 2 years. Then I went out freelance for a bit, and 2020 started Triple Story Content. And Triple Story Content has been running for 5 years. We are a producer-led company, and by producer-led we mean we are really our skill is in production. And as I said, it's really about bringing in the resources together that helps clients achieve their objectives in terms of producing content. It's not always just TV commercials. It's branded content, it's web series. Sometimes we don't even need to pick up a camera in order to produce that content. It's sometimes 2D animation pieces that we will do, audio, radio commercials, and now podcasts is the world that we're in. So yeah, I know that was not a 2-minute, but that's kind of my story in a long, big nutshell. Yeah.
Nah, it's why we call it Just Speak. We want people to be free to speak, but it is, and even I let you continue despite.
Sure.
But because it is fascinating when you hear somebody's story, because I think when we think of Monareng, you right now we know you in the executive producer, managing director, big presence. I mean, you give me Morpheus vibes. You just look, that kind of strength. And I think for what it's worth, just hearing that there was an origin to that story that looked different.
Yeah.
And a lot of young people find themselves having a vision for their lives, but not realizing that where they are is just as important, and they got to take each step and go through that process, because otherwise, you're not just going to land up at the level you are. You are the product of all those steps that you took, all the years of input into that journey. So that is why I think it's fascinating to let you tell that story, even if it's a repeat. It's fine, because for what it's worth, it's a thing of beauty. And one of the things that I really wanted to dig deeper into in our conversation, like I said, which is why I also said, as much as origin stories matter and all of that, it really didn't. I didn't want that to be the focus.
Sure.
Because I think from a business building perspective, which a lot of guys are trying to do, I thought it would be really helpful to talk around some of our experiences. Some may be shared, some may be diverse, but to talk around, you mentioned producer-led company.
Yeah.
And that obviously caught my attention, because that's what SNO Creations is on our side. And it's always been a business driven by me as the tip of the spear, so to speak. And one of the big challenges that we face, I don't know if you resonate, is that when you're going into the world and talking to these potential clients, a lot of which are agencies, there is this need for there to be a director or a roster of directors, and that's the model. And so when you find yourself in our position where 20 years of experience is almost reduced to insignificant in the absence of a director. And that is why producer-led company and that approach spoke to me. So how did you make that strong point of, I'm a strong producer, I know what I'm doing, and this is a production environment, that's the product, this is producer-led, and you're going to get the best of us, we'll find you the director to work. How did that model take shape for you? Was it successful out the gate, or did it take time?
Yeah, and I think it was an organic process. Some of these things come out of necessity, right? And I think the saying says necessity is the mother of all inventions. Because, I was in a position where, or rather, let me say it this way. When I started the business of Triple Story, or when you start a production company, the traditional way, or the kind of a few years ago, the barriers to entry were a little bit higher, or quite high actually at the time. You needed quite a bit of capital in order to have your machinery, in order for, back in the day, just to produce a show reel, to show somebody, you needed quite a bit of infrastructure in terms of transferring the work from what was a TV broadcast tape onto a U-matic, or later on into a VHS. You need, somebody to do that for you, because you don't have the resources to do all of that. Nowadays, you're on your computer, you can do all of that stuff and even send it to somebody and show it to them on their cell phone. So without that capital, it was a matter of saying, okay, how do I then create those opportunities? How do I create the agency for myself? And the only way that, and I'm talking agency in the true sense of the word, it was like, how do I fill the gap between where I am and where it is that I wanted to go? And that's really where the model came from, with the fact that because I didn't have the ability to keep directors on exclusively, because also you have somebody on exclusively, you either need to keep them exclusive, I think you need to be able to create work for them all the time to keep them busy.
Yeah.
Or you actually need to then compensate them for keeping them exclusive. All right. Now, if you don't have those, you won't have that ability right in the beginning to create the work, because you're still building and you're still, creating relationships and creating the business, so to speak. If you have deep pockets, sure, you can have people on exclusively. But now, if you don't have both of those, then you then leverage on what it was that I had. Now, I had my reputation in the industry. I had a lot of relationships in the industry, networks in the industry, and I managed to leverage off those networks to, one, identify directors who are not exclusive and are freelance, two, that have the capability, the know-how, and the gravitas the know-how, the gravitas to get into a room with clients, with agencies, or whoever the person commissioning the work is, and be able to reassure them that what it is that they want to do, we can do it for them. And it's really, it was starting off small. I mean, our roster has grown in terms of the directors, but it was really, we started off with only 2 directors, really, and I think it was not wanting to grow too quickly, too fast as well, and being able to just take on enough work to know that what the work that you're going to do it, and you're going to do it well.
Yeah.
So I hope I'm answering your question in terms of what producer-led, how we got to the producer-led. It was saying we will find the right type of resource for the content that you want to produce. And like I said in the beginning, sometimes it doesn't need a director. Sometimes because not all work that we produce needs a camera. A lot of it is, and that's the type of that's our core business. And in fact, that's our core experience is creating motion picture. And we love that. But sometimes that's not necessarily what is required. And you said something earlier on about everything that you do that leads you to a specific moment. I had done, at some point, I didn't mention what I did, live events. Okay. I was fortunate that I worked with my mother, who had a PR and eventing company. I worked with her for 3 years, and a lot of our clients we did a lot of live events, Metro FM, Sowetan. We did the Metro FM Music Awards for about 3-4 years.
Wow.
So I realized that, yes, I'm a filmmaker, and I've always worked in film, but also communications or how you communicate with people sometimes it's live, sometimes it's recorded, sometimes it's motion picture. There's so many different ways, and it's just about knowing the right dots to connect. in terms of achieving that objective. So, I then realized that, well, not everything that I do is filmmaking. Not everything that I do is content production. But what I do is bring the right resources together and know how those resources and those dots connect in order to get to where we're going.
And the agency world, which you obviously predominantly sort of work in, received that well?
Yeah, indeed. I think people were ready for a different model.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying in any way that we invented it or that we were the first to do it, but I think people were ready for a different model, and more other models that have subsequently revealed themselves or have come about in the last 5 years. And I know now the big discussion, of course, is around AI and all the different channels that are available out there. And all of them do coexist. The exclusive model is there and it's worked very well for a long time, and continues to. But there's also different models that can coexist along with it. Producer-led, freelance, call it independent directors working with a producer-led company, the content producers, the TikTok producers. I mean, we have people now who make content sitting in their bedroom, right? Even before they get out of their bedroom or out of their bed, they've produced something.
Yeah, something's happening.
I was just saying off camera that, everything that I believe that I've done has led me to this moment here. Talking to you, sitting, explaining the producer-led concept. And I realized that, some of the work does come to Triple Story because of the reputation to produce work, to be trustworthy, to be integrous, and also, to be responsible ultimately with not only the client's money, but also the client's product, the client's reputation, their the objective of what it is that they want to do, and to take theirs on almost as if it is your own property for the time that you are responsible for that client's name and product. Because ultimately, people don't remember that it was Triple Story that was at a particular location. They're going to remember the brand.
Yeah.
They're going to remember that it was that brand's advert that was being shot there, where people were not treated well, or they were spoken to or they were disregarded, or that they left the location in a mess, or they damaged the location. So we always remember that we're very responsible for the client's brand. Yeah, for that limited period when we're custodians of the brand. Anyway, I digress. But what I was saying was about being producer-led was that, having done live events, having done TV series, films, I realized that, the producer-director relationship is very symbiotic. We need directors as much as directors need us. And often the work comes to the production house, and the production house then finds a suitable director. Or how we work is we put all our directors forward, well, the ones that are suitable, we put them forward and let the agency or the client then choose who out of our stable they want to then go ahead and treat.
Okay.
Everybody then, I think it creates a bit of fairness amongst the directors, and for myself as well, because we are human at the end of the day. We develop biases, and for whatever reason, you might want to feel that one director is more deserving of the work, or you want to create or create a certain impression with that director, or, there's a certain, what's the word I'm looking for? There's that you want to create a certain impression with that director that you can deliver. Right. Yeah. So those biases kind of creep in. So I try and avoid those biases by purely then giving everybody a fair chance. I always give all the directors a first right of refusal.
Yeah.
Now, you might say, are all the directors suited to certain work? No, but at the same time, somebody might be wanting to step out of their certain lane and never been offered that opportunity to step out of that lane. So, say to, look, I know you're not a car guy, but here's a car script that I believe has got some performance that you can leverage off and try out. And and it has, there's parts of it where you can showcase your talent and your craft, and there's parts that aren't. But surely, with the support of the production house, the support of your crew, the support of your HODs, the DOP, the art director, the editor, we can then also support you in making that part of the commercial as good as the part that you're comfortable in, right? And it's really just then, once again, establishing the team aspect of what we do. And I've always said that it's a team sport. What we do is completely a team. It's never been about one person. Down to the lady that makes coffee, the lady at craft. I explained earlier on about how the being a conduit between what sustains people and where the sustenance is, or the fact that somebody has got to make sure that we all eat, because without eating, we're not going to have the what fuels us to be able to carry on and finish the day. So I'm a true believer in the team aspect of what we do throughout the whole process, from pre-production all the way to post-production.
Well, I know a lot of diva directors not going to love what you're saying, but for the most part, the nice thing about the world is that people have calmed down a lot, and the demigod type of era is gone, I hope. And certainly they haven't had opportunity. I got to say, just apologies for the rain. If you can't hear it, that means we're okay and we're good here. But all of a sudden, Monareng brought blessing with him because the heavens have opened up, and it is pouring, which is great for my garden, but hopefully not so terrible for our audio.
So, I mean, I was saying to you earlier that, in my culture, and probably in most cultures, is that rain is never frowned upon, unless, of course, it's damaging and putting people's lives at risk. But rain is always considered blessings in my culture. So we always welcome rain. So,
showers of blessing. So apologies if the audio is not fantastic. Hopefully it will be. And of course, two producers would come together to have a conversation. And that's the day the rain would come and affect it. But I think we'll be all right. And if we're not, then you'll just come back, right?
Yeah.
And then we'll
do it again.
Pick it up again.
And that's one of the things that I learned in doing live events. Was that sometimes these things can be messy and there's no second take. So you have to always try and do things right the first time, because there's very, very few chances, and that's I guess what we do is that you always get a chance to do a second take, to do a third take, and listen.
But it's why I don't shoot weddings, because once the bride starts walking down that aisle, you're done. You can't say sorry. Say I do again, because
which makes you then also respect the guys that do shoot. Because that takes a bit of courage to take that responsibility on. I know of people's weddings where the photographer did something wrong and they've just no pictures from the wedding. And to be able to take on that responsibility, I think is brave. People's memories.
In the little bit of time we have left with you, I know you got to run off. I wanted to ask, what is your opinion on the state of the industry currently, like in terms of more from the volume or busyness of it all? Are you finding it to be quiet in general, or is it, imbalanced?
It is a bit of a, I'm not going to lie, it is a worrying state, because suddenly there's not as much workflow as there was. And there's a number of reasons. I think one of them, though, is the fact that there's just so many different choices, not only choices in terms of technology, but also choices in terms of the number of players. There are so many different production companies out there offering or offering the same product at the end of the day. Now, does it have the same quality? No, but and some is of better quality than some are of better quality than others. But it's just because there's so many different choices, and I just frankly think that the market has become quite saturated in terms of the number of players for the amount of work that there is. I think with the state of the economy and it not growing, it's just creating a smaller and smaller pool for all of us to swim within.
Yeah.
So I think it's really just we're victims of, I think, of a bigger problem, in that we're players in an economy that is not expanding at a rate that can sustain all of us. And I think that's kind of, I just had the realization that, geez, that's actually, maybe just economics 101, that the pie has got to grow in order for everybody to have a piece of it that's big enough to sustain us. So, but having said that, though, I'm positive that things will turn around. It has to be. It has to turn around. Otherwise, then, we're living in a negative space, and you can't plan for negativity. You can't plan with negativity. Yes, you plan for the worst and hope for the best, but you can't plan with a negative mindset. You've got to plan with an abundance mindset, that there is enough for you out there to bring it in. And also, somebody made, actually just the other day, we were talking about having a discussion around AI and technology. And it's not something to be scared of, in the sense that if you look at it as just something that will help you achieve what you need to do faster. So a hammer that can hammer one nail in a minute, or a hammer that can hammer 60 nails in a minute. That's where what the technology offers us. So Photoshop, before digital cameras, right? You would have already gone through 4 rolls of film. Yeah.
In the time we've been talking.
That we've been talking. And I remember when the digital age came about, from analog, and the move from analog to digital, it was similar. It's not as openly discussed as then, because it was quite still within the specialized world of filmmaking. But we were all couldn't wrap our heads around, what is this digital transformation going to mean for us? What is this 4th industrial revolution going to look like for us? And suddenly we're able to pick up an iPhone and shoot video content. Yeah. Right? You're able to, and that iPhone has got the capabilities of storing hours and hours and hours and hours of footage. You can even edit on it if you really want. Of course, quality is not going to be broadcast quality, and it's not going to have that element of craft and the hours of craft that we put into making a commercial or making a full-length feature film. But the fact is, you produce something that wasn't there before, right? Yeah. And I mean, there's so many different examples of this, but I don't think we're in a state where we should be panicking. Yes, there is a downturn, but that's a global downturn. I think there's so many different options that people who need to communicate messages about their product have got now. Yeah. And if you look at previously, it was TV, it was radio, it was print. And now, if you think about how many different channels that marketers have got to work with in order to reach their audiences, I think it's exciting. It's for one to embrace as producers. I think it's for us to embrace those different channels and to see how do we, as producers, continue to coordinate those resources into making those electronic messages. Let's call them that. Yeah. It's just a shift of the mindset, I believe. So, I, for one, want to know all those different options and what are the possibilities of those different options. Yeah. So, yes, I'm a filmmaker, but also my job is about bringing the right resources together for the right reasons, if that makes sense.
Makes a lot of sense. But I've got to tell you, so one of the ways I measure sort of the state of the industry from a business point of view, well, two ways really. It's like, is the camera working?
Yeah.
Like the gear houses type of thing? Because remember, if we as producers are not working, we're just one in many, like, and people, we go from job to job. But there are guys that the gear houses are booking everybody's gear. So what are they doing? And then the crews, crews go from one job to the other, like day for day. And so if you see the crews quiet and you see the cameras quiet, suddenly you start to say, okay, this is an industry thing, not a you thing, right? And in talking about the cameras, like I told you earlier, we've got the big cameras, like that like high, the top of the range cinematic, right down to these ones shooting a podcast and everything in between. And obviously from our perspective, it helps be able to position for the client what works for them within their needs, within their budgets. But I heard on the other podcast that we referenced earlier that you were on, you were asked a question about budgeting. Yeah. And you were asked about how you put the budgets together. Do you yourself budget? But I have a question. I watched a video recently that actually sparks this question. We're going into a world where a hammer knocked a nail in 1 minute and now it's knocking it in 60 nails in the same minute. These efficiencies. Yeah. So how do we make money? Because for a long time, our budgets were based on time, days, shoot days, rates per day, rates per hour, whatever the case is, post-production, how many hours does it take to edit? But if Pharrell can cut a video faster because of some assistance from AI, using the efficiencies of the technology better, should our rates get reduced and our earning potential therefore also reduced? Or should we get the benefit of having a price point in the way things cost that lets the benefit of those efficiencies fall to us and you as client? Yeah. Because now suddenly if you can do an edit in an hour that should have taken 5, but you were charging per hour before, the inclination is to want to still do it in 5 hours because that's what's going to make you more money. Yeah. How do we navigate this world where the efficiencies start to push things faster, but our billing model was the time-based model?
Yeah.
Should clients be willing to let us?
I don't think it should be about how do we make money or how do we continue to make money. Yeah. I think it should be about how do we continue to deliver value. Okay. Right? And the old kind of triangle of, I'm going to try and not mess this up, but it's depending on what is your value that you're looking to derive. Yeah. Are you looking to get a good product, or are you looking to get a product out faster, or are you looking to get a product out cheaply? Yeah. Often those three you can't get all three. You maybe get 2 of them, but you maybe not be able to get all 3. Sometimes you can get reach a perfect balance. It's like focal point. Sometimes to be able to get the right focus within that triangle, you need to kind of be moving in and around a certain area, right? Your focal range. Now, we've got to say, how do we then, in the time that you are hammering 60 nails in a minute, how do we then, where's the value in that for? How do we pass that value on to the client? And how do we continue to find value for ourselves? So how do we continue to make good films or good products or good communication products while we make money and while the client makes money, all right? And doing it faster. So does it mean that we do more of those kind of projects? So, we're now, instead of working in just 1 minute, we're working in 10 minutes where we're doing 600 nails, instead of just the 60. So it's those kind of things that we need to find now. And that's, I think, where innovation comes in as an industry, where dialogue and keeping talking and platforms like this, platforms like us talking and sharing ideas and not being afraid to give our own ideas or take on the ideas of other people, or that and not being protective, because if you're if you live like a fortress, you end up being isolated like a fortress. If you're always constantly thinking about, I need to preserve my ideas, for the long siege that's going to come, then you end up, being closed. And you're not taking in outsiders into your fortress now by the way of ideas or any external influences into your fortress because you're looking to be so protective of this, But I do believe that for innovation to happen within our industry, we've got to share those ideas. Hey, maybe Triple Story's model worked for a period. Maybe Shaun's model works for a period. How do we then, maybe for the next period, combine those two models to come together? The exclusive model with the producer-led model, the director-led model with the service kind of ideology of directors, because that's kind of the things where how do we merge all of these things to make our industry go further, and ultimately create value for the people that pay us, which is our clients, because. And I think when we look at it in that way, they sell more products. People buy more products. People have more money to buy those products. The industry grows. The economy grows. Everything it's a knock-on effect and in that way. So I didn't know when I became this optimist, but I think it's in thinking positively and thinking about what's next. Not even what's next, but really saying that the outcome is always going to be positive. I think it's about saying that it will always turn out for the best.
Would you be willing to almost reduce your upfront cost at the model of saying to client, if this communication does what it's meant to do, you will reward us as a back-end benefit?
Almost like risking it with the client.
Yeah. Do you think such a world exists? Does it even make sense?
Does such a world exist? Look, at the end of the day, we need to cover our costs. I think that's the starting point. And at the end of the day, the cost of things is the cost of things, right? To buy a microphone costs amount of money, or to hire it. So if you're covering your costs in that, now, that's point number one. So you got to be able to cover the cost of what is required. Now, myself, as a person, I come at a cost as well. So do I risk my time for the return that is possibly to come? And that's where you kind of sharing risk. Maybe that's a way of thinking about it in a different model, but it's one that everybody's going to be, that's got to buy into. Now, how do you insure against that risk? Is the question. If it does not happen, I can't afford to lose R1 million, whereas can the person that is commissioning me to take that risk along with them, can they maybe insure against that risk perhaps? That if it doesn't turn out, what are the guarantees then that I will then make the money for my time back? It's an interesting one. It's a different way of looking at it.
I honestly asked the question, but fully aware that there's no such world that will exist anytime soon, if anything. And I tell you why, because I find it in film. So obviously I work in feature film world as well. And as is trying to remain an independent filmmaker where we get to make the movie without being beholden to, a studio or a streamer, whatever the case is up front.
You're carrying risk.
We're carrying risk, right? But what I find interesting is that there's a lot of players within that value chain that would like to see better value for their role in it, but not willing to take that risk with us.
Sure.
So not reducing the fee significantly or not, foregoing, as producers, we defer fees to the back end of the project.
Of course.
And there's a lot of people that want to be in the royalty conversation, in the profit sharing conversation, but that are still, their agents are still having fee-based conversations with us.
For sure.
And I remember being in a room with a lot of filmmakers in cross-section. I'm talking everybody from gear houses to directors to producers, whatever, just a whole cross-section of the industry. And I said to the one guy sitting next to me, I was like, dude, there's a movie in this room with the only cost being catering. people that have the cameras, people that have the ability to be in front of the camera.
That's interesting, Shaun.
Like, and I said it, I was like,
and everybody's got to
literally
be willing to carry that risk and share the profits.
I said the only money needed is what we're going to eat.
Yeah.
Like that particular room that day could have done it, but nobody's having that conversation.
Or willing to take the risk.
Yeah. And that is why I say it's not a world that will exist anytime soon.
Look, also, I don't think we're in a situation right now because there's not a lot of surplus going around.
Yeah.
I think we only have to look at the bigger kind of macroeconomics to see that, as a country, as a region, or just as as industry, there's not a lot of surplus. Now, where people do have surplus, time, money, reserves, then sure, then it pans you to take that risk. But at this, I don't think the mindset is right for that kind of conversation. Maybe later, but not quite right now, and one thing that I think we've all learned from COVID is that it can take a certain situation to change our mindsets and change our mindsets forever. We were in a situation where we do some of the things that we do now remotely, we would never have thought of doing before COVID. We have meetings, we do approvals on remotely, we do all kinds of stuff electronically, even do a whole project. I've done projects where they've even laid eyes on the people. And I'm not talking even laid eyes on the people across the screen. I'm talking people have camera off the entire time during pre-production and post-production, and yet we do a film and we finish this thing. Is there and I know COVID was a negative event, but is there a positive event that could push us into a change of mindset like that? I don't know where this windfall would come from, where we're sitting with all the surplus on an economic level, on a small business level, on a macro business level, where we can take risks and the client can also share within and can take the risk of sharing on the back end, profit side of things. But ultimately, when there's scarcity, nobody's really willing to have that conversation. So it's an interesting one. I mean...
Yeah, I think, and I also find it relevant in smaller conversations. You won't find yourself having it with a big brand, but you'll certainly have it with the small business guy that's coming for help and says, hey, I can't afford this, but I'm willing to go here if you would go there. And so one has to always be flexible, I suppose, is what it really comes down to.
The stakes are not as high then as well. That's the other thing. You can take a risk. You can take a 10,000 Rand risk. You can't take a million Rand risk. And you can't keep taking million Rand risks day in and day out.
No, it's exactly. And like you said, unfortunately, there are hard costs. Eskom does not stop charging us for these lights to be powered. And unfortunately, that's what it really comes down to, the practical side of hard cost.
Exactly. Petrol still costs what it costs.
To get you.
Yeah.
So I thank you for getting here.
Thank you.
And thank you for the time. I don't even think we got to everything really, but what's beautiful about, you said you've got a podcast coming. Please know that in us you have friends, partners, people that are ready. We stand ready to serve. It is the SNO way that we are always here.
Indeed.
And so we wish Triple Story every bit of success.
Thank you. And same to you. We're stronger together, as the saying always goes, right? So if we can support each other, we just did a shout out to Audio Militia. I think this kind of thing can really kind of breed a positivity, if that, to say, there's enough out there for all of us to thrive. And we can also create our own fortunes as well by doing this kind of thing. Which is exactly what this is. You're literally creating your own fortune and saying, I'm going to do something that's going to keep my equipment working. But also in doing that as well, I'm just going to reach out to another person and ensure that they also benefit from what it is that we're doing, and giving each other a leg up. Yeah.
So
thank you for this.
We always say that we're more collaborative than we are competitive. And whether that's a strength or a weakness, we will find out
soon.
But I thank you for your time. And if you have any comments about what we've been discussing today, if you want to know a little bit more and you want us to explore the conversation further, we'll invite him back. Just ask those questions. He is Where are you? Around the corner?
More than willing to help. Yeah, no, well, I mean, the beauty about where we live is that we're never more than 30 minutes maximum away
From something, yeah.
From something. So getting here just takes a bit of planning. But we're based in Bryanston.
Yeah.
So, we're 15 minutes away from here, 15 minutes away from a lot of places, actually. So, but it is worth the effort, always coming to have conversations about our industry. I love this industry. It's been very good to me. Not only just from a lifestyle perspective, but just also from an exposure perspective. I mean, the things that I've seen and places that I've been because of the work that I do, there are very few kind of careers that can offer this sort of thing. So I'm always trying to preserve it and make sure that it has longevity, because like I said, it's been very good to me.
Yeah. So questions, comments, bring it up. If it's something that we can answer through the socials, we'll do that. If it warrants Monareng coming back and answering more questions that are specific, we'll do that too. But we thank you for your time. This has been another one of Just Speak, the Shaun Naidoo podcast. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Just Speak.